It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a special guest. A guest who I've talked with a lot, but not on this show, Roland Denzel. Welcome to the podcast, Roland.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always good to have, well, really anybody to talk to. We're still in quarantine here, but it's not to sell you short, sir, but So tell the listeners. Gosh, readers. Geez, I don't have that many readers yet. Tell the listeners what sort of stuff you write and who you are.
So I started off as years ago. I was I've been writing ever since I was a kid, right? Mm. But I've written a couple of practice novels earlier when I was around in my late 30s. 53 right now. 52. I'll be 53 at the end of the month. And, but then I got into health and fitness. I lost 110 pounds. It's been 17 years now, almost 18. And I've kept it off ever since. I got really inspired to be in health and wellness. It became more a hobby at first, but I really picked it up and got certifications and training. And then I met the woman who's now my wife, who is a professional personal trainer and a gym owner, and we wrote our first book together. And then, we fell in love, got married, and 5 books later, we've got six nonfiction health and fitness books under our belt, a couple more in the works. And and then I do health coaching and author coaching, and also people who are small business owners who want to do business around a book. So I help people who want to write a book to help be found in their business.
Oh, cool. So people who are writing books to increase their kind of visibility and get their message across, however they're planning to do it.
Yeah, everything from businessmen, business people who they have this big idea book that they want to be able to say, hey, I wrote this book, and they want to be a speaker. And so they go around doing, business talks and things like that. So they want to have this book that they can sell when they speak, but also it gives them a little credibility. That's sort of at the high end. And then there's other people like gym owners who want to have a separate little book that they can give to their clients or sell to their clients. And for the home workout, which would come in really handy right now if every gym owner had a book for their own home workout or their own nutrition stuff that they could have supplied their client with during the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But you also, what have you been working on lately? And not just the nonfiction, right?
No, I've got an urban fantasy series in the works. Book 1 is quote unquote done. Book 2 I'm writing right now, but I already have, I'm going to hold off till the end of book 2, then go back and re-edit book 1 because there's some ideas that I have that I think I could more properly see that's going to help lead into book 2. And then, but I've got book 3 already sort of mapped out, so I know what's going to happen there, and just I'm really excited about that. And I just really decided a couple years ago that I want to really focus on fiction for a while. I'm still writing nonfiction, but I want to focus on some fiction. And I was writing everything. Mm. I was writing military sci-fi and space opera and chick lit, more literary stuff. And I kind of decided that, I'm not getting anywhere by doing all of these things. So I did the research and which of the things that I love are most likely to keep me happy writing for the longest and also be successful, and where I can sort of get the ideas and the characters out that I really want to get out. And that was urban fantasy.
Okay. So it's more of a personal preference thing than opposed to writing to market in that case.
Yeah, I had to, it really came down to, I knew that the chick lit was not, at least the style that I was writing was not going to be a big seller. but I liked the emotional aspects of it. The space opera could have been a big seller. I hope, you never know, but you hope.
Possible, right?
You look at the odds, right? The story, and I still love that story. The story. I have one first draft of the first novel and a first draft of a second in the same series that I would know I'll one day go back to. But I laid them side by side and laid out all the ideas I have for the series, and the urban fantasy stuff just kept going, and those characters just called to me. I really just, I just got to get those characters out and those relationships out. So that's where I decided that that's where I'm going to focus for at least a year or two.
Cool. So when you write fiction specifically, and what do you tend to focus on, or your process? Is it more, discovery based or outline based?
It's outline based. I mean, there's, I start with to be honest, I almost always start with like a character. There's some character some aspect of a character that I want to explore. And then usually that character has a friend, and there's a relationship there. And then after that, then I'm like, what do I want these people to go through, or what do I want them to discover about themselves? So then I'll think about that. And then from that, I kind of get well, here's the beginning. Here's where I'm going to have it end up. And then there's a couple of points throughout the book that I know I like, important scenes. Sometimes scenes that I'm lying awake late at night and I'm thinking, this is a scene I really have to get up and jot down a note about. And those will make it into the books somewhere along the line.
Cool. I mean, did you find, because you started writing fiction, you say you've been writing since you've been a kid, but did you finish your first book later in life, or when did you finish your first rough draft? I wrote in college. I wrote a lot of short stories, just because those were what the classes were. Yeah. And I looked at it, the college I went to the community college, at least, that I went to had a science fiction author that was there. He wasn't a big name, but I was able to find one of his books and read it way back then, even before Amazon. And he inspired me, and he had a class where he teamed up with the astronomy professor, and they taught a science fiction class together. Neat.
So that was a lot of fun, and that kind of got me into more hard science fiction, like Larry Niven, Jerry Pournelle. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a lot of stuff then. Then screenplays were so much faster to write. I took a screenplay class and knocked out a whole bunch of screenplays just for the storytelling part of it. But then my first rough draft novel was when I was 35.
Okay, because
I just took a long hiatus in between, writing short stories here and there, but nothing serious. I knew back then that I was not the type that would be I need to find an agent. I'm going to keep querying. So I'm okay, that's not really me. That's not really my personality. I want to write just to write. And but then something happened. Oh, my mom passed away, and back when I was 35, and while I was cleaning out her house up in Montana, there was she had limited television. So it was Lifetime Channel and stuff like that. So a lot of angsty, chick lit, romance kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people with a lot of loss and recovery and trauma. And then as I was driving home to California, these stories about, me, but in another character's form, going through a similar loss of their mother and coming back to this small town and having to pick up the pieces of his mother's life. And then that just inspired me. So on the way home, I would almost look for moments to take breaks, long breaks. so I could have, this was before any good coffee was available. So it would be at a diner or a fast food place. And I would just take out my, it was remember the Palm Pilot?
I vaguely do, yes.
Okay. So it was actually by Sony, the model, this particular model I had. So, because Palm OS had an operating system. So I had the Sony version of it with a little butterfly keyboard that opened up, and I just carried it around with me. And I wrote my first draft of this first novel on the tiny little screen on this Palm Pilot.
Oh, that's so
on my
cool.
way home from Montana to California.
I mean, the more I dictate, the more I'm like, that's a good way to write, because you can't really see the whole thing. You don't even get an idea. And that kind of helps helps me at least stay in the moment when writing. I don't need all the bells and whistles. I mean, I like Scrivener, but all those bells and whistles, they can be distracting, especially for someone like me who's ADHD.
I have Scrivener now, and I barely use it. I put it, like when I write, I put it in distraction-free mode, and just write like that. I do use the little corkboard features, to move scenes around and stuff like that. But it's crazy if you think about what authors in the olden days would write on, and how not all, but a lot of today's authors are like, oh, I can't write unless I have a MacBook, or I can't write unless I have a Microsoft Surface with this perfect keyboard, or I need two monitors because I need to have Scrivener open with like the outline in my other monitor. And like even today, I write on a 13-inch Windows computer with Scrivener and distraction-free mode, and put my phone behind me so I don't have to look at it.
Sounds like a good deal. Before I quit typing most of my books, I still typed. I actually typed today, but I actually went to using LibreOffice, basically Microsoft Office, but cheaper. For my actual rough draft, where I put this stuff after I dictate, now it goes in LibreOffice before it goes in Scrivener, because I figure just as a pretty recent change. So I was like, okay, this will be good because it'll simplify things. I'm not going to get distracted by all the corkboard and stuff, but I can use the corkboard later once I put all the chapters into place to move them around if I need to. But,
nice.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. But it occurred to me as like, when you said, imagine all the things people have written on over the years. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that Black Obelisk in Assyria, where they got this basically the first comic strips ever, but they're just people giving tribute to Assyrian kings.
Yeah.
Sequential art carved in stone.
Yeah, it's interesting how like people. Yeah, I mean, some people still write by hand, yet other people are like, "Oh, I can't write unless I have this thing." And people will spend. Have you seen those things where it's like a dedicated keyboard with a little ink screen, and they could be like $500, $600. And yeah, it would be cool because you can write out in the bright sunlight without any sort, wouldn't still see it. But
and you just send it straight to your computer or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, but is that real? But is not having that really what's keeping you from writing more? There's other ways you can find to.
I mean, now the cell phone makes a lot more sense than that. Honestly, cell phone, because everyone has one already, basically. At least in the United States, so it seems like it's inevitable.
Yeah, my friend Kevin writes. Like when he's traveling, he has a keyboard that's like way bigger than his phone, and he just carries this Bluetooth keyboard around. And when he's ready, he props up his phone and on whatever, some books or something, and just starts writing with his Bluetooth keyboard.
Yeah, I've written a bunch on my Kindle Fire too. Not so much with the full story, but I've done tons of notes on there. Yeah. Anyway, it makes me uncomfortable to write a story with autocorrect it being a feature, but well, whatever. That's just my personal hang up there. So
yeah, I'd like to be able to write without editing so easily that I could just like close my eyes and just get it in and like look back. But some of my typing is so bad that I'm like, what did I write? What did that say?
Yeah, same here. I mean, that's one of the reasons actually that I was going to say before I switched over to dictation, and I was using this program called Cold Turkey Writer. Which is really cool, and it's free. I had the pro version, which is like $5, $10, something like that. But it's like it's basically similar to the distraction-free mode in Scrivener, except that it actually has a timer, and you can't leave it until you meet the timer or word count requirement.
Oh.
So, and it takes your whole screen, and it outputs only to .txt files.
Wow,
it's pretty
hardcore.
Cool. It was really cool though. I mean, like you just do it for 20 minutes, And that was how I got my best word rate before I started dictating, which is, it was still only about 30 words a minute. It's not particularly impressive, but there you go.
That's about mine.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to type story that fast. I find that my brain actually does the story part faster than my hands can do the text part, which is weird. I know most people aren't like that, but whatever.
Well, I used to tell people that that's my typing speed is not it's not what's making my writing slow. It's like me coming up with a story. But it sounds like maybe the opposite is true for you.
Oh, it definitely was. I mean, now I can do, like if I'm really rolling with the story, sometimes I've gotten as high as 137 words a minute.
Wow.
Which is, 5 times faster almost than 4 or 5 times faster than my actual writing by typing.
That's great.
And I don't think I could talk much faster than that is the other thing. And have it be legible by the software. So I've run up against the upper limits of what I could do with dictation speed too. I don't do that a lot though. It's very difficult to actually be going that fast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mentally. Anyway, so Roland, you have a focus on fitness, but also you've got this focus on fiction. These two things, that's kind of simpatico to me right now. Because, I'm not the fittest guy in the world. I weigh like 280 pounds. And that's on a good day. Jeez. I'm pretty tall, though. I'm 6'2". But anyway. So it balances out a little bit, but I'm still a giant, and I shouldn't be quite as heavy as I am. And I was thinking, I just can't. Do you have any tips for people who are kind of inherently sedentary, like writers? To do better with their health, get more exercise, that kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. Like, you could take advantage of this dictation thing a little bit. Like, not even necessarily like you don't have to go out for walks, but there's a lot of power in authors tend to sit still for hours on end.
Yes.
So if you can find a way, like the ultimate would be if you can get up for just 5 minutes every 30 minutes. So like a lot of authors are, they have to get up to go to the bathroom, right? Or get up to refill the coffee. So that there's the Pomodoro technique, which just happens to be within the same range as this. So there's been studies that if you get up and move around, you don't have to exercise, just get up and move around, like walk around for about 5 minutes every 30 minutes. It lowers your blood sugar by about 20%, increases your insulin sensitivity. And it's a technique that they've used for type 2 diabetics to help regulate their insulin sensitivity and help them lose weight. So without changing much more. So that's one thing you can do. And it's kind of nice to use it takes a while, and people resist the Pomodoro technique because they think, well, I could be right in the swing of things, and I can't just be interrupted and stop doing what I'm doing. But eventually, it'll become like a pattern, and you'll hit the 25 minute thing will go off, and you'll be like, okay, I have 5 minutes, but you can still think about what you're doing. Right? Yeah. But you just have to get up and do something else. You have to do something slightly different. It sort of resets your brain, lets you to focus again. And now, boom, you're back to another word sprint for 25 minutes. And in the meantime, if you've gotten up and moved around, you've improved your health at the same time.
Okay.
So you just have to kind of, like anything, like when you learn to type, you don't learn to type right overnight. You have to practice for a while. Same thing with the Pomodoro technique. It might temporarily decrease your writing speed, but eventually it should increase your productivity. And the other thing is just a lot of it is, it's hard to eat less of the same foods that most people eat. Because it's not like, people you can order a smaller hamburger. I think, was it in Pulp Fiction where somebody said, I think it was Pulp Fiction.
A Royale with cheese.
Yeah, but I think it's Samuel L. Jackson in maybe it's a different movie, but somebody's looking at the menu and he's standing there and he says, I'm watching my weight. What has half the calories of a cheeseburger? And he says half a cheeseburger. Right.
Oh yeah.
So you can, but it's hard to eat. If you get a whole cheeseburger, try eating just half of it. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with, so what I typically do, and that's what I do myself when I'm less active, I pick things that are easy for me to pass on, things that don't satisfy me in the same way, like, and keep me full, which is unfortunately usually carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So I try to limit my carbohydrate intake to 1 meal per day. So I have 1 to 2 servings, but at just one meal per day. And that can help with blood sugar regulation, which can help with hunger signaling. And so that's a benefit. So it's like you do this investment. I'm making a sacrifice. And at first it's hard, but then over time you get used to that. And you're like, well, you know what? I'm not as hungry anymore. But you have to be willing to change what you eat. Instead of cereal or like oatmeal, you have to have bacon and eggs, or like an omelet with some sort of like vegetables or something like that for breakfast. Instead of a sandwich, you might have to have a salad, or just like the same stuff that would be in your sandwich with some sort of like raw vegetables or some cooked vegetables.
Or between a pair of fried eggs. No,
yeah.
That's what I would do if it was up to me.
Do you remember they had this reverse burger called the Double Down?
Oh boy, that's terrifying, honestly.
Yeah.
So much fried stuff there.
Yeah. So, but like you can do the same thing. Like, I mean, my wife hates turkey burgers. I love turkey burgers, and I love regular burgers too. But sometimes I'll just take 2 turkey burger patties, like from Trader Joe's or something like that, and cook them, and you put like a slice of cheese between them, or top them, and you put them on a plate. So almost every place, like restaurants, have bunless burgers, but you could do that at home too.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. You can keep bags of frozen veggies in the freezer, and you can heat up half a bag to have with your breakfast or with your lunch or with your dinner. So a lot of times I just suggest to people, because if you think about most meals, like if you think about what a meal is like meat and potatoes and vegetables, right? You don't have to have the potatoes. So think of things less as meat, and think of like, what foods do you need to eat? What ingredients do you need to eat to keep your nutrition high, give yourself enough energy, and that aren't going to stimulate your appetite. So protein source, lots of vegetables, some fruit, healthy fat, and then that should be every meal and every snack ultimately, right? And then try to limit your carbs to 1 meal a day, unless you're exercising a lot, right? And then what I usually tell people is if you have like a really hard workout, and it's not just walking around the block, but like a really like you're lifting weights, or you do some like sprinting, or like you're using your exercise cycle and you're really working up a sweat, that's probably enough to give you like another, if you're really focused on weight loss, you can still, maybe your 1 carb meal should be after that exercise. Okay. But people who are more maintaining, they can use that and like maybe add in 1 more on a heavy exercise day.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good summary, honestly. That sounds like good actionable stuff. I mean, I'm happy about it, because that's the kind of stuff ideally, especially the eggs and meat. That's the stuff I like to eat anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, bread is tasty, but it is so dangerous, It's better to switch to meat and eggs, honestly. And, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So like diets like the paleo diet kind of get a bad rap, but essentially, if you look at the nutrient composition of like bread or pasta, it's extremely low compared to the same number of calories that you'd get in like vegetables or fruit. So, and there's really nothing you can't get from a nutrition standpoint from vegetables and fruit that you're giving up. So people who talk about, you're missing out on all these healthy this fiber. Well, there's a lot more. Feed a lot of vegetables. There's a lot more fiber in vegetables than there is in bread.
Okay.
And so the people who get in problem with nutrient deficiencies is because they switch just to meat and meat, like meat and cheese and stuff like that, and skip the vegetables.
I've heard of certain problems arising there.
Yeah. Not to mention maybe some constipation.
Oof.
No one wants that.
Yeah, no constipation. We're not doing that. So, Roland, we'll switch gears here because we're running a little low on time. What have you been reading lately? Any interesting fiction or nonfiction? Or, and this goes for listening and watching stuff too, obviously.
I've been reading some of the books in the urban fantasy area. By like Shane Silvers is one that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got a ton of books and I really like that. And I'm kind of I started in like one of his lesser series. It has a female, Callie as a female protagonist. I really like that one. And then when I finish with that, I'm going to go back around to some of his other ones. We're reading some older stuff. Magic Bites, and just some of the oh gosh, what is it called? Moon Called. So Mercy Thompson. I think it's Mercy Thompson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is the character.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little bit of Dresden Files. I like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then I always just like some like science fiction here and there. I'm a hard science fiction guy. Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle still. Got some good adventure and some science, sort of more sciencey based science fiction. And then on the authors, then like I've been reading a lot of like Chris Fox. I think you recommended.
Yeah, I do. I would recommend the Chris Fox nonfiction books for sure.
Yeah,
his fiction's pretty good too, but his nonfiction books are where it's at for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then reading some of the older, like the classic stuff on like more story structure and stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, as for me, I reread 2K to 10K by Rachel Aaron, who has been on a guest on this show ages past. Talked my ear off, which is awesome. But yeah, that book. It's funny how I reread it recently. It's very short. It's like a pamphlet because originally it was just a blog post, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
But it is. There's one key line that I've never really registered before. This time I went back, I'm like, oh boy, highlight that thing. Because basically, because she's an outliner, I'm a discovery writer, but like, I'm like, oh, okay. But there's this one line about you need to think through what your scene is going to be before you write it. I'm like, oh, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
But I haven't been doing it lately. Oh boy, no wonder things have been so tough. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I try. Like, you know what? I'm stuck here. I'm just going to try to pant something for a little bit, and like usually it works okay for that scene. But then now you got
to go back to the outline eventually.
I'm a little bit off course. It's sort of like that, like when if the ship is off by 1 degree, like by the time they get to their destination 4,000 miles away, they're like way off course.
Oops, we ended up in Norway instead of Sweden. I don't know. That's not how that would work. That's not how that works. Anyway, thanks for being on the show, Roland. Where can people find you and your work? Yeah.
Yeah, you can find the best way. If you're an author, the best way is to find me at, you can go to rolanddenzel.com, super easy, or indestructibleauthor.com. Goes to the same place. But,
nice.
So whichever one is easier to type.
Well, I never know how to spell indestructible.
I know, me too.
That's kind of like the, just to do the plugs for my end, the mentalsellerpublications.com or timneederwriter.com. But those are almost equally difficult to spell because no one knows how to spell Niederwriter. Yeah, but those are where you can find me. You can find my books, and as of this recording, but actually, never mind that, because when this show comes out, this will be too late. But 10 Liars is out there. 10 Liars is my big epic fantasy with guns. We got Demon Scroll, which is my big epic fantasy with monsters. Well, they all have monsters, let's be fair, people. And then I have also The Forces of Empire Book 1, Origin of Storms, which is my gigantic space opera kind of romance thing, adventure. It's a crazy deal. Anyway, and it's all set in a universe that's totally rocking, if I do say so myself.
You are a prolific dude.
No. That's all the books I have out, basically. Just 3 of them. Come on.
All right.
Shadow Prince should be out in June, though. Fingers crossed that I can get it done by then. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for being on the show, Roland.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you next week, everybody.
That tears it.